Getting Ahead is getting started. Honorable Chief Guest of the Day, Dr. Suraj Soman, respected dignitaries, guest delegates, and all the participants. A very warm good evening to one and all. I, Nikita, feel privileged to welcome you all to the 70th talk of Intersociety Weekly Webinar Series, which is jointly organized by the IEEE Kerala Section, the Institute of Engineers Kerala State Center, Computer Society of India Trivandrum Chapter, Project Management Institute Kerala Chapter, Internet Society Trivandrum Chapter, Okkamalavi Foundation Trust Trivandrum, Life Member Affinity Group IEEE Kerala Section, IEEE EMBS Kerala Chapter, the Institute of Electronics and Telecommunication Engineering. Before we begin, I would like to inform you all about the program protocols. I request all the participants to put your name on the Zoom platform that was used by registering for the event. All participants, except for the speaker, are requested to keep the microphones muted and videos turned off throughout the session. Participants can type in their queries in the chat window anytime during the program, which will be addressed in the Q&A session by the speaker. Moving on, I would like to welcome Ms. Gobika from EMBS for welcoming this virtual gathering. Gobika, please.
Thank you, Nikita. A warm good evening to all. It's with immense pleasure that I am here before you to partake in this weekly webinar talk. Intersociety Weekly Webinar Series is organized and conducted for the general audience to gain insight and information on the latest trends in the fields of technologies and engineering. Today, we have gathered for the 70th webinar on nature-inspired, personalized photovoltaic technology naturally. Materials and technologies as efficient as conventional silicon solar cells in harnessing energy from the sun, which are cheaper and robust, have always been a concern for the scientific community. And for delivering talk on such a relevant and interesting topic, we have a highly experienced and acclaimed professional. It's a privilege that Dr. Suraj Soman, scientist, CSTD, CSIR, NIIS State Trivandrum, has accepted our request to deliver this talk. We welcome you, sir, to this evening. Yes, sir. It's our pleasure. Every event needs active organizers who work tirelessly to make things run smoothly. I welcome all the role players and the office bearers in the organizing committee who are sincerely committed to make this event a success. In drawing things to a close, I welcome all the dignitaries and participants to the much-awaited section of the evening, wishing a profitable and fruitful webinar experience and extending our hearty welcome to all the partakers once again. Thank you.
Thank you, Gobika. Now I would like to welcome Mr. Afnan from IEEE to introduce the speaker.
Am I audible?
Yeah, yes.
An alumnus and gold medalist of Mahatma Gandhi University, securing first rank for his bachelor's and master's in chemistry, our esteemed speaker, Dr. Suraj, obtained his PharmD from Dublin City University, Ireland, followed by postdoctoral tenure at Michigan State University, USA. He was also fortunate to associate with a few industries like Solar Print Ireland, JCEP, and Dow during his scientific career. He is a recipient of many prestigious awards, including SSIR's Young Scientist Award, Kerala State Youth Icon Award in Science, R.L. Taco Young Scientist Award, Best Emerging Young Scientist Award, Kerala State Young Scientist Award, BRICS Young Scientist Award, International Strategic Cooperation Award, and Indira Gandhi National Fellowship and the KYPI Fellowship. Dr. Suraj started his independent research career at CSIR NIST in 2014. His prime research focus at NIST is to address fundamental science issues related to new molecules, materials, and methods for photovoltaics, in particular for dye-sensitized solar cells, which being the most efficient technology for harnessing indoor, artificial and diffuse lights and the best available technology for semi-transparent colored facades for BIPV applications. Dr. Suraj played the leadership role in setting up India's first truly indigenous module fabrication line for dye-sensitized solar modules, partnering with industry supported by the DST SERI initiative, and was licensed to Elixir Technologies, Bangalore, in 2019 for further commercialization. Dr. Suraj's team is focused on developing creative and out-of-the-box approaches, utilizing the knowledge generated in their laboratories to solve fundamental scientific problems and systematically transform this knowledge to demonstrate technologically relevant products to market in the near future. We are indeed honored to have this highly qualified, esteemed speaker for today. Without much delay, I invite you, sir, to take over the session. On to you, sir.
Thank you, Aftam. Let me share my screen first. Am I audible?
Yes.
Whether the screen is also visible?
Yeah.
It's a full screen, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, a very good evening to one and all. First of all, I sincerely thank the organizers, particularly from the IEEE, Professor Harindralal sir, and also Kupika and Afnan for their kind words of introduction. I consider it really as a privilege to be a part of this group and to share some of the experience from the last few years of our journey in the research field, particularly in the photovoltaic sector, and the kind of innovative and the new inventions that currently we are pursuing in our laboratory. So myself, Suraj, I work as a scientist at CSIR, National Institute for Interdisciplinary Science and Technology here in Thiruvananthapuram. So I am actually part of the family CSIR. So as most of you know, CSIR is the premier science and technology organization in our country. It's our national lab system, which was established in 1942. And it's an autonomous organization under the Ministry of Science and Technology. And the main purpose of having CSIR is to bring the complementary skills from different sectors together in a way to address the unified national and also international goals. So we do have around like 38 laboratories like in different parts of the country in various sectors like biological, chemical, engineering, like that. And with more than 4,000 scientists and 8,000 technical staff, like this is actually one of the world's biggest public funded R&D organization working on some unified goals, solving problems related to the mankind to come up with solutions and all. So as we all know, like currently, like we are passing through certain situations which are really challenging. So which are related to the pandemics, the health, and related to that. But additionally, like we can't forget that like there are other things also that we need to address at the same time, involving the global warming issues, the issues related to the farming and agriculture, food, energy, sustainability, and things like that. So in a way to address these kind of challenges, as the name of our institute itself, like National Institute for Interdisciplinary Science and Technology, in the same line, like we need to actually put up together the expertise having complementarity. That means we need interdisciplinary approach by having the expertise in different subject areas, putting up together and trying to find out solutions to common problems. So as we know, like the UN is actually has come up with the sustainable development goals. There are 17 of them in different sectors, and one of the goal, like goal number 7, is actually ensuring access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all. So out of many different problems, like we do work on various things, and this is one area that right now, like my research group is really focused on finding out new solutions or alternative technologies in a way to have a sustainable and modern energy supply for the growing requirement globally. So this is actually one news that most of you might have come across, which came 2 days back. On August 9, 2021, where UN has shown that like now the UN climate change welcomes the IPCC summary for the new policy makers. So now it is being predicted that by the end of this century, there will be a temperature rise of around 2 degrees. And we should try our level best in a way to restrict that up to like 1.5 degrees. And in a way to realize that right now itself, globally, the countries need to come up with new policies by which they can address this climate change. And this is very critical because, you know, like 20 years back or 30 years back, we were not that much worried about it. But recently, the impact of the climate change is really affecting every part of the world, actually. And we do also see that, as we know, like in the last 2-3 years' time, the kind of floods that are happening, the kind of environmental havocs that are happening in our small state of Kerala, in this part of the world, itself really gives an indication that it's time to really look into these kind of aspects. So what actually really results in this kind of problem? One thing is that we need to survive, and for that we need energy and electricity and different kind of aspects. And there we need to actually burn the fossil fuels. That is what normally right now we are doing. So when we are burning the fossil fuel, one issue is that this is a non-renewable source of energy, and it takes millions of years in a way to get it back, like onto our earth. So once it is finished, it's done. Like what we will do after that, that's still questionable. So how our future generations are going to survive? Like, are they still going to depend on the coal and the petroleum products? So that is one issue. Another issue is burning it, that results in a lot of like greenhouse gases that comes out, that damages the earth, results in the climate change. All other issues are coming in. So what is the solution for that? The solution is actually to move from the non-renewable sector to the renewable sector. So we have various renewable sectors available, like the tide, wind, hydroelectric, geothermal, biomass, and it is predicted that by 2050, in another 30 years time, currently we use around like 13 terawatt globally, and we need additional of 16 terawatt. So if we are switching over from the fossil fuels to the renewable energy, and if we are going to depend on these kind of like tide or wind or hydro or biomass, then the maximum extractable energy from these sources, if we are accounting it all together, that itself will not come anywhere close to our requirement. And another issue is that the biomass, the maximum what we can get there is 5 to 7 terawatt. That means if we are taking all our cultivation and if we are burning it and producing energy, then this is actually the maximum we can get. But we can't do that because we will all like starve and we will die. And the maximum from hydroelectric, if we are putting dams everywhere, we all know, like even like the dams that we have in our state, like how it is actually creating issues with the environmental and the other impact that are creating when some floods are coming and things like that. So what is the solution then? How we can address this problem? So the solution is out there, shining on us from millions of years, the sun. So the sun's light, which is actually incident on Earth's surface, every day, if we can actually harness it in the right manner, then the amount of quantity of energy that we harvest in a day is more than enough for the humankind to meet its energy requirement for maybe 20 or 30 years. So the take-home message is that there is huge amount of energy that is being pumped to us. And what we need is the right technologies in a way to harness it and to use it for various applications. So what we use there, we use the photovoltaic cells. Normally we say for solar cells. So the solar cells takes the light energy and converts it into like different forms which are being used up, and which is actually the best way in a way to address these kind of issues which are created by the fossil fuels. So when we look into the history of solar cells, it all started like almost like 150 years back, dated to 1839, when for the first time in the lab of Edmund Becquerel, he discovered this photovoltaic effect. It all started from there. The science actually started from there, but there were no solar cells at that time. Then later, Willoughby Smith discovered the photoconductivity in the late 1800s. And then Albert Einstein came with the photoelectric effect in 1900s, but no solar cells till that point. But again, 50 years down the line, in 1954, in Bell Labs in US, Pearson, Chapin, and Fuller, they come up with the first working solar cell, which was around like 1% to 2% efficient. And another few years down the line, the first application was done by integrating a solar cell in a satellite in 1958. So in all these kind of applications, starting from the 1950s, the market is actually led by the silicon photovoltaic solar cells that we see around, like either it will be a blue tinted or a black tinted kind of solar cell, whatever we see in the rooftops of our homes or like other buildings in and around the town and other places are the first generation of P and junction solar cell, silicon solar cell. So what we are having there is a P-type semiconductor and an N-type semiconductor, which are clubbed in together. And when the photons are incident on it, and if it can actually separate the excitons out, which are getting collected, so there should be an enough power, like the energy of the photon should be high. That's why like when the full sun is there, when the noon time is there, the power production is higher, and when the intensity comes down, automatically it actually decreases. But from where like we get the silicon, like even though we say a lot of make in India kind of thing with the solar cells, unfortunately we are not having a true make make in India solar cell. Even with whatever be the silicon we are having, we either buy the shingles, or like maximum what we are having right now is like we are getting the ingots and then cutting it into the pieces. So from the scratch, from where you get it from the silica, the sand, and from there you process it. A lot of chemical processing are there by which you make this ingots, and then that is cut and converted to the vapors, and then finally it is assembled into the panels. But here the critical factor is that if you want to achieve a higher efficiency, it needs to be that much pure. How much pure? It need to be 99 point, you need to write 99% pure. So because in case if there is any impurity in it, that actually will kill your photovoltaic performance there. So this automatically increases the cost of production and all other associated issues. And that is one reason why the silicon solar cells, like we are seeing it maybe in the last like 5 to 10 years, we are seeing it most common even in our places nearby. And why this market penetration, it took this much time, even though the first solar cells was made in 1958, was actually this kind of cost which is involved in converting a normal silica or sand into the wafer. Then now the question is that why not silicon? Like there are many issues. Like as I mentioned, one thing is the process is tedious, it is expensive, it has limited design options, aesthetically, like I should say, like it is not that pleasing at all. So this actually triggered the scientific community to come up with alternative technologies. So silicon, basically PN junction is a direct bandgap semiconductor. So people started to think, okay, like look, if we move to a direct bandgap semiconductor, then we can reduce the thickness of material. Normally silicon is around like 300 to 400 micrometer thick, and if we can use a direct bandgap, then maybe we can go to 1 to 2 micrometer, thereby like you can save a lot of cost there. Additionally, when you reduce the thickness of your active material, you will get the flexibility in a way to deposit it on other substrates like plastic or metal. So that actually gives much more flexibility in a way from the application point. So this triggered into the second generation of solar cell technology, where like we have this amorphous silicon, the copper, indium, gallium selenide, CIGS, cadmium telluride, CDT, and this kind of solar cell. But here also, even though it is more advantageous compared to the silicon in the power production, because the one of the best efficient solar cell is the direct bandgap gallium arsenide solar cell, which is the second generation solar cell. But the cost of production was much higher than the first generation solar cell. Additionally, most of the semiconductor solar cell second generation uses metals which like cadmium, tellurium and all, which are rarer, and that actually results in a lot of problems and even like pollution and things like that. So in the beginning of the 20th century or the late 19th century, the scientific community started to think like we need to develop solar cells which are more environmental friendly and which are more close to the nature. And that actually triggered into the development of third generation photovoltaic technologies like organic solar cells, dye-sensitized solar cell. That is actually one area that right now, like today in my talk, I'll be a bit more focusing on perovskite solar cells, quantum dot solar cells, and things like that. Okay, so coming to the history, like as I mentioned, like we started the journey in 1958. And every time when we see the solar panels, like I actually like I'm really enthusiastic when I see these panels, and this is a technology that takes the light and actually converts that to the electricity, and it's an excellent discovery. And in the last 50-60 years time, the efficiency has gone up from 1% all the way to like 25-26% on small area devices. And on panels right now, we can get the panels of 18 to 19% efficient panels for the monocrystalline silicon, and maybe 15-16% efficient panels, 350-400 watt panels for the multicrystalline silicon. But the question as a scientist that I ask here is that why the solar panels always have to be a bit ugly looking? Like it should have evolved in a way that it should be getting the kind of functionalities where it looks more beautiful and where you will get more integration possibilities. So even in 1958 and 2020, the aesthetics of the solar cell more or less remains the same, and that actually restricts in a way for future innovative integration possibilities using the solar panels. So now I want your attention to this particular slide. This is not a slide which is photoshopped or something. This is actually the pictures which are taken from different parts of the world where they used the new generation of solar photovoltaic technology as a building material. So here you can see like the picture here is actually from EPFL in Switzerland, where these colored solar panels are used as facade material. So it serves the purpose of a building material. Additionally, like it can actually generate the power also there. So these kind of innovations are coming up now. Another thing is that like we live in an era where we use a lot of gadgets, our mobile phones, tablet, laptops. And one thing that even though the telephone, like the phone, actually the purpose of the phone is for calling, like now we do a lot of streaming in that. And one of the major concern for most of us is that the power is getting down, either in any of the gadgets, in any of the electronic gadgets we are having with us. So can we think about something like a foil, like an aluminum foil that we buy from the market, or a plastic foil that we buy from the market? If we attach it to our electronic gadgets, and if it can generate the power from all different light conditions, outdoor, indoor, diffuse light, artificial light, and support our energy demands for that point devices like what we are having in our hand, that actually is something that we need to look into. Another major thing is right now, we know like we used to hear this industry 4.0. The humankind evolved from the 1700s to today through various industrial revolutions. In the first one with the mechanization, then with the introduction of electricity in the second industrial revolution, then to automation, introduction of computers in the third industrial revolution, and right now like we are right now at industry 4.0, where one of the word that we most commonly see are the IoTs, Internet of Things. So what basically is an IoT? So it can have various kind of dimensions and definitions, but to me, like from a layman point, like what I see is that as a human being, I have various sense organs, like I can see, I can hear, I can smell. So in the same way, like if we want to have the physical world to have the sensors, like we need to integrate a lot of sensors and actuators into the system, and how we are interconnecting, or how we are actually linking these physical world systems, like that all comes with these IoTs. And it being predicted that there is like billions of devices that are connected in this, and in various sectors like automotive, like healthcare, consumer electronics, utilities, and all the things. But one thing I want your attention here is that few years back in 2015, 2012, 2015, when these IoTs were like pretty much into the stream, it was predicted to have somewhere around like 1 trillion IoTs. And IoTs are needed actually. Like if we want to have more smart world, like everything to be smart, like we need IoTs. Not only like our personal kind of things, but in production, in manufacturing, everywhere. So it is predicted around 1 trillion, but later we have seen right now, like it has gone, the predictions, whatever it is being predicted and what really is there is much less. So IoTs and these kind of like smart devices are required, but the predictions and what is there in reality is actually slightly different out there. So there are many reasons for it, like many reasons can be there. But from the standpoint of research that currently what we are doing, we see an issue with the power that the IoTs are being taken up. That means like normally the IoT systems, like which are independent system, works with the batteries, and batteries used to have a finite lifespan. And when you are going to change it, like you need manual inspections and replacement. Also during that period of time, like you can actually miss some very critical data there. And most important part is the throwaway batteries, which are creating safety issues, environmental issues, and other major concerns there. So it is being predicted by a few people, like if you are throwing like the batteries from 50 billion devices, there will be enough batteries circling the earth almost like 5 to 10 times. So that's a huge carbon footprint. So what we can do here, we can make self-powered systems. So the systems that actually lives by itself. So we have the energy all around us. It can be either the light, it can be heat, it can be vibration. So you can have thermoelectric generators, you can have indoor photovoltaic light harvesters, you can have piezoelectric generators, which are attached to these kind of nodes and which can power it by themselves. So at the end of the day, like you are not having a battery replacement. So you are having lower cost of ownership, and you are having large scale deployments leading to greater operational insights. So this is actually the core area that right now, like we are working on to support these kind of systems which are sitting indoor through the new generation of not outdoor photovoltaics, but indoor photovoltaics. So we all know, like outdoor photovoltaics, we have the Shuklik user limit, where the maximum achievable efficiency is around like 33%. But when it comes to indoor photovoltaics, it changes. And one thing you need to keep in mind is that when I'm saying like it's a double of what you can deliver from an outdoor photovoltaic, it doesn't mean that you are producing megawatt kind of a power there, because indoor photovoltaics all work with the indoor lights like LED and CFL, and the maximum input power that you can get from it is only in microwatts. It may be like 300 or 400 microwatt, and if you are saying I'm having an efficiency of 30%, the power you generate there is 100 to 150 microwatts. But with that, you can actually power a lot of gadgets and devices. That really increases the importance there. Okay, so now coming to the indoor photovoltaics, what is the technology out there? So this is where like we come to the nature. The nature is having one of the very beautiful mechanism out there, which is the photosynthesis, where the light is taken by the leaves and the chlorophyll molecule absorbing the light, the EZ scheme there, fixing the carbon dioxide, splitting the water, oxygen coming out, we are breathing. So in the beginning of 20th century, scientists started to think like, can we mimic the plant? Can we mimic the process that happens in the plant and make the devices out of it, which is more like using naturally abundant systems and which is close to nature. And this actually resulted in developing of devices where they replace the chlorophyll with the certain dye molecules. They replace the charge transfer proteins using certain semiconductor oxides, and the proton pumps being replaced by certain electrolytes, and led to the development of the dye sensitized solar cells, or the dye cells. And this was discovered way back in 1991 in EPFL in Switzerland in the lab of Professor Michael Gretzel. But for almost like 20-25 years, the scientific community who were associated with this particular area of research was literally making this area to be competitive with silicon. But later in the last few years' time, we realized that it's not a competitor for silicon. This is actually having a totally different niche area of application, where this technology proved to be the best technology for indoor light harvesting. To harness the light from the artificial sources like LED and CFL. So this graph, which is shown here, you can see like you have amorphous silicon, gallium arsenide, OPV, perovskite, dye cells, and dye cells currently like stands at an efficiency of certified efficiency of 35% in the indoor light conditions. And what basically it has, it's a simple device. You have two conductive substrates, fluorine tin oxide conductive layer coated glasses. And in between that, you have three different components. One is a semiconductor, then a dye which is coated to the semiconductor, and an electrolyte. And now various industries are coming up, developing very unique products using this technology, which can really support various applications. So there are three major components in a dye cell. The first one is the dye, the heart of the system, which actually takes the light. So it can be organic molecules or it can be organometallic molecules. And then the second component is actually the titanium, the nanoparticle. So you can even find that in toothpaste and all, like it's a very cheap material. Then the electrolyte, or the shuttle, which actually shuttles the electrons and holds in between the system. So what happens here is that, so in your dye, you are having a ground state and you are having an excited state. And when the light is shining, the dye molecule absorbs the light, and it actually excites one electron from the ground state to the excited state. So if your device is designed in such a way, if the energetics is custom tuned in such a way that the conduction band of your semiconductor is below your excited potential of your dye, then the electron will get injected to your semiconductor, and which will get collected, which goes through the circuit. And then you are having a hole which is there in the ground state of the dye. So that is being re-reduced by the electrolyte which is present, which automatically get oxidized, which goes to the counter electrode, and the cycle goes on. And the voltage that you gain from this device is the difference between your Fermi level and your redox potential. So the difference from your thin film PV and the silicon PV is that there it's a single material. A PN junction semiconductor material is a single material, but here the light absorption is done by one component, the separation is done by another component, the regeneration is done by another component. So we splitted the process into a couple of different components, and that actually provides it's the flexibility in a way to even perform at such low light conditions. Another important factor is that, like, even though, like I mentioned, this forward electron transfer process, the moment you inject the electron, there are various back electron transfer process that happens, and this need to be addressed in a way systematically, in a way to have like better photovoltaic performance. And when it comes to the anatomy, as I mentioned, like you have two glass substrate, and in between that you have di-coated semiconductor and an electrolyte which is there. And this is the way in which like we make small area lab scale devices for testing, and the process starts with cutting of the glasses, and there are various stages where you deposit the semiconductor electrodes, annealing, the die soaking, which is followed by the counter electrode preparations, like where we deposit certain catalysts, and finally like these two electrodes are being assembled with a gasket in small area, and in larger area devices it changes, the sealing and those things changes there. So where are the applications comes into for this technology? There are two major applications, as I mentioned in the beginning. One is the indoor photovoltaic or the low power application, and second one is the building integrated photovoltaic, where it is taking the advantage of the aesthetics of these systems. Another part is that these solar cells can be integrated into various flexible substrates like plastic, metal, and that gives you the kind of flexibility in a way to have your energy producing packet along with you wherever you are going. So when it comes to BIPV, one thing is that like the power production that comes from a die cell, the efficiency, the maximum efficiency, currently the reported maximum in the lab is somewhere around 14.7%. At the same time, for a silicon solar cell, it is 27.5%. So that difference is still there. And the moment you go from a cell to the panel, like it will be again less. But the advantage is like in a different front, because when it comes to die cells, like it is completely independent of the intensity of the light. It has the capacity to perform even in lower light conditions. Another factor is the efficiency with respect to this incident angle. Like we know, like for the silicon solar cell, it's angular dependent. If the angle is too much, like your power production decreases. But here the case is different. And now there are like some very interesting applications and demonstrations which are there in different parts of the world, which are coming in. Like in EPFL Switzerland, this is actually a facade, a 2 kilowatt facade. And down here, this is actually the science tower in Austria, which is having this kind of beautiful colored semi-transparent panels which are attached to it, which is around like 25 kilowatt. And this is in China, in Shanghai, where they are having a 500 kilowatt installation. So one thing you need to keep in mind, like when I am initially when I started to speak about the PN junction solar cell, the photovoltaic effect that discovered in 1839, it took almost like more than 100 years to realize into a working solar cell in 1958. So from 1958, it took another 50 years or 60 years to penetrate into the market to reach to our homes. And I am speaking about a technology which was discovered only in 1991. And it's only been like 25 years or 30 years which is being getting completed. So there are a lot of things that need to be done from the research side and also from the technology side in a way to spearhead the commercialization of this technology. So from here, like I'm switching over to like what we are doing in our laboratory, which are related to this indoor photovoltaics and also on the dye-sensitized solar cell front. So we do work at a truly interdisciplinary way at the interface of chemistry, material science, device physics, and engineering, with a true focus on the application. So we focus on three major applications. One is the indoor photovoltaic application, then portable electronic application, and building integrated photovoltaic and transportation integrated photovoltaic application. So majorly, like I used to hear this question from many, like, who am I? Like, what is the whole thing, what we are doing? So we try to say ourselves like an interdisciplinary team of scientists and researchers. So that will best suit to the kind of work that currently like what we are doing. And before I go with the work that from my research group, I should acknowledge my team. So this is the team of people like who are research students and PhD students who are being part of the journey, which I'm going to describe now. So when it comes to the dye-sensitized solar cell, as I told, there are three major components. One component is the dye molecule, which is the heart of the system. Then there is a semiconductor and an electrolyte. So I will just touch upon some representative example of the research that is being done in our group here in NIIST, which is contributing in a way to further help this area to progress. So when it comes to the dyes, we have a team here of organic chemists, a modeling team, and a device fabrication team, which work very closely to each other, where we design molecules, then the team of synthetic chemists, they make these molecules, and the device fabrication team fabricate the devices and analyze the performance, and then we come back to the table, and whatever be the modifications from the grassroots that need to be done to do the structural engineering of the system that is being taken care of. So a lot of different molecules are being made, and considering a certain point in mind, one thing is that the dye should be new and novel. It should be having higher performance, not only in the full sun, but in the indoor light conditions. It should have pretty stable. It should be stable. Otherwise, because organic molecules, stability issues are there, and the cost also should be less. So this is actually one recent example that we had showcased. So this MK2 is a commercial dye that you can actually buy from the market. And this MK2 dye was giving an efficiency around like 24% under the standard indoor condition of 1000 lux EFL illumination. So then one of my colleague, Dr. Yusuf, here in my division, he had come up with two new dyes actually. One is a YK8 and YK9 dyes with some structural changes, which was by which like we were able to realize higher performance at the same indoor conditions, but the production cost for these dyes are like much less. So here I will show you a small video. So here what you can see here is that like these are like 4 of these devices which are clubbed in together, and at a 500 lux intensity, this much power is completely enough in a way to power a temperature sensor without any batteries in a completely sustainable way. So then coming to the electrolytes, conventionally people use iodide, triiodide as the electrolyte system. So in the last 3-4 years time, my research group is involved in developing new class of electrolytes, because when you go from small area devices into the panels and the modules, we need to do interconnections. Normally we used to have grid lines with silver anode. So the conventional iodide based electrolytes are highly corrosive to the silver grid lines, and that results in the damage. And another issue is when we look into the application we are focusing is indoor light harvesting applications, integrating to maybe realizing self-powered sensors, actuators, and things like that. So many of you are aware, like when you go for this kind of indoor energy harvesters, the requirement of power is different there. You need a higher voltage, but you can have like even working like the systems at like nanoamps or like microamps current. So how we can generate higher voltage from a single junction solar cell? So this is where like we again come back to our basic science, and we modified the electrolytes where we can custom tune these molecules in a way to realize lower reorganizational energy between the oxidized and reduced species, and that triggered to faster regeneration, faster transport, and higher diffusion coefficients. And this is actually a paper that we published in 2018, which is actually one of the seminal papers with this copper electrolyte system. And we went more deeper into it in a way, understanding what is actually the limiting process in these devices. And we figured that there are certain trap state and surface state recombinations which can be addressed, and if we can do that, that can actually lead to much further improvement in the photovoltaic performance. And this is something that we achieved through the research in the last like 2 to 3 years time in the copper electrolyte, where with custom tuning the electrolyte engineering, currently with like whatever be the higher efficiency that is being reported are with multiple dyes, but by modifying the electrolyte, currently we were able to achieve around like 30% efficiency. When I'm telling 30%, you can see the power output. It is only like 87 microwatt per centimeter squared, but this can be used for like multitude of applications. So this is actually one of the recent work that we had done. Another part is that when we say about electrolyte in this particular devices, we use organic solvents, which are not green, of course, like which can't be recycled, and that cause a lot of issues, environmental concerns there. So one of the way to address this issue is to transform from the organic solvents to aqueous based electrolytes, where we can use water as the electrolyte. But what we had seen is that the moment you switch from an organic solvent to an aqueous solvent, the conventional kind of additives and the other molecules that you add to the particular system is not performing well. So recently what we looked around us, and we find that we can have certain kind of binders in the form of natural rubber. So here what we had developed is a natural rubber based aqueous printable electrolyte system, and we were able to actually achieve around like 7 to 8% efficiency in the indoor light conditions with this new electrolyte, in compared to the standard ones, which was like a really bad when we are having this aqueous based electrolyte systems. So then coming to the photoanode modification. So the kind of applications that you really see with this particular technology, it doesn't use the conventional serial or parallel interconnection. Here, the interconnection is totally different. It is different from your the semiconductor-based solar cell. So we use a different design called a W-based design. So in this W-based design, your anode and cathode alternate in between your front and back surfaces. So in conventional electrodes, what we normally have is a semiconductor, which is around like 20 to 30 nanometer particle size, and that can hold the maximum amount of the dye molecules. And on top of that, conventionally we put scattering layers with particles around 400 nanometer, and the purpose is to realize backscattering. But when you are using those 400 nanometer particle, you are compromising your transparency. So you won't be able to make a transparent bifacial solar cells there. So what we have done here is that we introduced a new technique where we can actually create certain imprints on the surface of the TiO2 through controlled etching mechanism using zinc oxide different structures. And that actually resulted in a bifacial photovoltaic device, which can harness the light from both different sides, from the front side and the back side, with almost comparable efficiencies. Another part is like varying the engineering side, like varying the kind of deposition. Like we normally use the doctor blading, screen printing is there, the grout coating is there. So we do check a couple of different techniques, and we have figured out that with the biennial sealing and with the screen printing, we can really custom tune the efficiency with the standard materials in a way to realize somewhere around like 18%, 28%. Another innovative thing that we have done is in the last few years' time, one of the critical issue with the leakage of the electrolyte from these devices, which really prevented it from getting into the market. So now we are introducing certain new whole transporting materials and solid state devices, which directly addresses the issue of the liquid electrolytes which are present there. Another interesting thing is making of multi-junction devices. As I told you, like the requirement, the power requirement in the indoor light conditions and the indoor energy harvesting devices, it requires a higher voltage where the current requirement are much less. So here we can make like the 2-junction, 3-junction devices, and you can realize very high voltage, because from a single junction, by custom tuning the molecules and by engineering the devices, we are getting somewhere around 1.15 to 1.2 volt from a single junction device. And then like you can have multiple devices which are clubbed together serially, and just with a very small physical presence of like 1 centimeter or 2 centimeters squared of devices, you can get many of the kind of IoT devices to be self-powered there, or like the energy harvesting circuits to be like powered there. Another major aspect that we have introduced in the past few years is the development of very critical characterization tool. So in a way to transform any small area device into a panel or a module, you should clearly understand what exactly is happening in the system. Particularly when it comes to this kind of molecular photovoltaic devices, you are having different materials which are clamped together, and you are having multiple interfaces, and that multiple interfaces is solid interfaces are there, solid liquid interfaces are there. So to probe the movement of ions and also to probe the movement of electrons and holes in these interfaces is very critical in a way to transform this into the large area devices or the modules. So in this regard, we have custom designed a range of electrical characterization tools which can really probe much deeper into the actual device and try to understand how the recombination is happening, how the transport is happening. And this is a very unique facility we have right now in the lab. So the realigned basic research, I should say, involves like development of new dyes for the indoor photovoltaic application, development of electrolytes which can realize above 1 volt from a single junction device, new photoanode material for building integrated photovoltaic application, realizing transparent bifacial devices, then device engineering, of course, characterization tools. So this understanding of the basic research of this particular technology gave us the confidence in a way to spearhead and take the science from the lab and further move towards the technology and products. So at the end of the day, like 3 years back, we were able to power a temperature sensor using a panel which is around 10 centimeters square. But now with the research that we have done with the molecules and materials developed in the lab, and by incorporating it with the right engineering designs, we are able to reduce the footprint of the device. Like currently, like with just 0.6 centimeter square device, we at an intensity which is 15 times less, we are able to generate the same power in a way to do the work done there. So moving to the product development, the thing changes there. We take the fundamental R&D, we move to applied R&D, then the fabrication and manufacturing. So it goes by step. So initially we started with making some prototypes, like the stripes by increasing the area, some kind of small applications and all. But then we realized that in a way to transform the cells, like 1 centimeter squared or 2 centimeter squared cells that you make in the lab into the modules or the panels or real technology, there are a lot of other bottlenecks which are involved. And one major bottleneck is the equipments. This is true, like we all know, like even in the silicon sector, if we want to start a manufacturing plant for silicon solar cell, where we will get the equipments? We will import the equipments either from China, Taiwan, Korea, Malaysia, like that. So imagine for a photovoltaic technology which is not at all mature, which is just starting up, there are not at all like even anything even globally available in a way to realize these kind of panels and all. In this regard, we ventured into a very unique kind of a development, partnering with the Department of Science and Technology. And in 2017, we were awarded with a project where we went into true indigenization of the equipments for module fabrication using the dye-sensitized solar cell. And here we realized a reduction in the cost of production to around like 60 to 70%. And currently this particular production line can take up modules of 5 centimeter by 5 centimeter all the way to 30 centimeter by 30 centimeter squared. And this aligns with government's initiatives like this, Making in India, Atmanirbhar Bharat, Make for the World and all. So the project actually got completed in May 2020. But before the completion itself, the technology was licensed to a company, and the company is currently spearheading the development. So the process actually starts with the glass cutting. So this is the various stages of it. And once the glass is being cut, like then different designs are screen printed on the conductive glass electrodes. Then it is taken to the robotic system where there is a silver dispensing unit, so that will actually dispense the silver lines in between your electrodes, and this is being annealed so that the binders and those kind of particles are removed, and then treated in a dye coating system in the nitrogen atmosphere. The dye absorption is being carried out. Then on the counter electrodes, the holes are being drilled, and then these are sealed using an UV epoxy. So the epoxy is being coated onto the silver lines because that need to be protected from electrolyte. And then the pick and place robotic system will place your counter electrode on top of your photoanode. And once that is being aligned, the entire system moves to a UV chamber where it shines a UV light. And then the anode and cathode will get assembled together. And then we fill the electrolyte, and finally, like you are having the module there. So this is how the process goes on for this. And this actually was showcased in various scientific organizations in BST, CSIR and all. And the technology was actually licensed in October 2019. But like in this particular regard, we are actually taking a different route. Like it's not just like licensing a technology to the industry and then forgetting, like let them do whatever they want. It's not like that, because these are niche areas and you need to handhold the industries in a way to make them capable to address the kind of requirement that is there in the country. So currently, like what we are having is that we divided the sectors into three. One is the academic sector, then the governmental sector, and the corporate sector. So we do have like very custom designed solutions for the academic sector, where the main focus is on developing of new molecules, materials, and basic R&D. For the government institutions like the scientific labs and DRDO and places like that. Then for the corporate sectors like the industries or like the new spin-offs or like those kind of people who are having a very innovative idea and they wanted to have the indoor light harvester is like attached to that, they can come to us and we can give some unique solutions there. So partnering with the International Solar Alliance, now we are trying to build up a true supply chain circle where it involves R&D testing and assistance, custom equipments, modules, materials, trainings, and everything. So it's a totally different kind of a business model, which involves like development of the IPs, where the R&D part, the product innovation is there, then development of the markets, in some cases hand-holding the industries, and finally like going to the manufacturing and things like that. So this is actually one of the master plates that we have developed in the lab, which gives around like 16 to 17% efficiency in the standard indoor conditions. And you can see like, so with an LED light, like it's powering something over there. And to the right, what you see here is a clock and a temperature sensor, and it is having these three small solar cells which are connected in serial there. And you can see the lux, right? It's around like less than 300 lux there. And with such low intensity, it is able to power these kind of sensors and actuators truly independently. And we are also involved in developing certain niche products. So one is actually a self-powered perfume dispenser, e-shelf labels, self-powered environmental sensor. And since right now, like since the COVID situation came up, we do have certain very unique projects currently running on in different sectors related to it. So I will finish maybe in another 5 minutes time. So looking forward, the way forward, like what's the future? We know like we all are stuck at home due to many reasons, and like these things are there, but we are not ready to dream less. Like Dr. Abdul Kalam has said, big dreams transformed into thoughts, and the thoughts results in the action. So we do believe in that. And our major focus and the thrust right now is both on indoor photovoltaics and on outdoor photovoltaics on two different verticals, one on the high science and technology. And we are trying to bridge the gap, the valley of death between the science and the technology in a way to address certain unique application or come up with some unique solutions through through proper collaborations, internal collaborations, national collaborations, and international collaborations. So some of the sectors is like building sector. We target to have these kind of standalone systems which are sitting inside a closed space, which is aesthetically beautiful and which can harness the artificial light and convert that to useful power. Smart furnitures, like which are like very unique and which can actually generate the power, like smart windows. Then in the transportation sector, like we all know, like right now, like discussions are going on for like this fast moving, the K-rail kind of things. So when you are having this fast railway or the fast road network systems, in the Western world, you can see like the noise barriers are something that is being used, because like it's truly disturbing for the community which are around. So imagine for a state like Kerala with too much of population, there are many concerns that can come up. So this is where we can provide maybe some solutions where like you are not having a complete enclosure, you are having some very beautiful colored transparent panels which are see-through panels, which serves the purpose. At the same time, it can generate some power also. Also, we are looking into areas like in metros and all, like where we can have these kind of like panels which can be integrated both indoor and the outdoor. And also another unique application that we are right now looking at is the urban rooftop farming. Like I do live in a flat, and I can't imagine to have a farming space on the 7th floor of my apartment complex. But can we have this kind of very unique completely self-sustainable rooftop farms with integrated kind of solar systems which generates the power and which can actually provide us with the kind of requirements that we are having. So what I see here is that like I see every surface as an opportunity, whether it's inside or outside. And my aim is actually to make all the surfaces productive, to build houses where the windows, walls, or even the floor or any surface to harvest and convert the useful light to the power. So what we believe is that like this is the beginning of an unprecedented breakthrough in the energy sector, transforming our life. So sun is available to everyone. And we know like what we want to do here is that we want to bring the solar close to the people, but in a more beautiful and well designed and in a way by which it can be integrated to the place that where we are standing. And this can be achieved through the development of off-grid independent power ecosystem, ultimately realizing and democratizing solar energy for everyone, everywhere, using personalized solar technologies which are environmental friendly, cost effective, and which are made using locally available materials.
So with this, I wind up my talk and I'm open to questions from the audience. And thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. Can I read out the questions?
Yes, please.
Okay. First question is from N. Ravindran. Very fascinating development of the PV cells to have in our home for our day-to-day need, but the cost of installing solar panels in our houses are very costly at present. Can the speaker highlight on the cost aspect for a small family of 5 for domestic use, and also inform us when the cost of PV cells will come down?
Yeah, actually, this particular question is mainly focused on the current market-leading solar technology, which is the silicon solar cells. And it's not right for, I'm not the right person to comment on that particular cost. One reason I will tell, like the first part of the question is that why this is pricey, like why the silicon solar cells, why can't the normal common man can't afford it? One major issue is that we don't have a production of silicon solar cells. We are importing the shingles, and whatever be the companies which are involved, they are actually doing the assembly of the shingles and all. So the manufacturing is something that we already missed the bus. We should have done it like 30 years or 40 years back. So that actually creates this higher price for the solar panels. But at the same time, business work in a different way. Now there are many companies in China and Malaysia making these panels, and once the manufacturing is too high and the sales are less, of course the cost will come down. So maybe in another few years the cost will again come down. But we can't have a direct one-on-one comparison with the silicon and the technology that majorly, like I spoke today, because this is actually an emerging photovoltaic technology, and we are still in a regime where we are still working on the R&D side. But the first part of the question, like the cost is high because we don't have an indigenous production, and like we hope that maybe in another few years time it can still come down. But I am not the right person to comment exactly on how much big panel you need, a family of 5, or what is the power output. I may not be the right person. I'm sorry for that.
Okay, sir. The next question is from Ashok Kumar. A really overwhelming amount of research in your lab. What are the patents obtained for these products or processes?
Yeah, we do have like our own know-how which are developed into it, and this is actually something where, as I told you, like we do have an industry who is associated from the day one of this project. So if we go for certain patents, like where the time consumption is very high and the technology can go obsolete, so this is being done in a totally different way, where the know-how is being licensed to the company and the technology is being commercialized to the company. But we do have a few good number of patents also with this.
Okay, so the next question is from Surendran K. Can you avoid batteries using these solar cells?
Exactly, that is our ultimate aim. So in certain cases, not in every cases, but in certain cases where the power requirement is less, and if you are transmitting, like if you only need to transmit like 10 times in a day or like 20 times in a day, you don't need a continuous kind of a thing. Like even just a 1 centimeter squared active area device will really do the job there. And in certain cases, like in the night, you need, since there is no light, and if it is completely dark at that time, like if you want to send some data, in that cases, you can have a super capacitor which is attached to it. So ultimately, removing the battery, like when we say like, okay, I'm removing the battery from my remote, or like from some of the gadgets I am having from in my home, we feel that it is a minuscule thing. But I had visited a mall, a shopping mall in Sweden, where they were having around 50,000 sensors in that particular mall, including environmental sensor, CO sensor, CO2 sensor. And they have a special team of people who move around every month changing the batteries of these sensors. So you can imagine, like when we move into the next era or the next decade, when we move to more smarter world, this becomes a part of the life, and we can't avoid these things. So there, once we can deliver a technology which supports this indoor light harvesting, and which can be integrated also. That is also one thing. That is where, like, all the time glass may not be a substrate which can be rightly integrated into the kind of gadgets, because it increases the weight and all those kind of issues, breaking, and those problems will come up. But the same thing, if you are having it on a plastic foil or a metal, that's what currently we are working on. That can be a true solution.
Okay, sir. Next question. Has any part of the research in CSIR reached manufacturing stage now? Are there win-win associations with the academic institution?
Yeah, currently with this particular project, this was licensed last year, and the company who had taken up this particular system, they are actually into manufacturing. They already sold a few items abroad in Europe and all. And currently we do have a few things in pipeline. Some big projects are in the pipeline where we are hand-holding the industry and we are trying to execute it.
Okay, so the last question is, can you share the cost involved for the DSSC panel 30 by 30 centimeters square?
Yeah, so currently what we are having in our lab is a lab level production line, and it may not be right to comment on the price at this particular point, because it is done on an R&D basis. Like when you look into a production line, like for example, if I want to have a 30 centimeter kind of 30 centimeter panels, like 50,000 pieces in a month, then the cost calculation and the amount of material, like you buy the material in bulk, and those kind of things will change. So it may not be right to comment on the price from an R&D point and then converting it into a commercial thing.
So there's one more question. Can you imagine a future where natural trees are power plants?
Sorry, can you repeat that? I didn't get it in full.
Can you imagine a future where natural trees are power plants?
Natural trees are power plants, right?
Yes, sir, that's the question.
Okay, I do see that, because right now, like I will tell you, like when I'm speaking about this solar cells, as I told, there are two conductive substrates. These are FTO, fluorine tin oxide, and this conductive substrates in India, we don't have local manufacturing. We are importing this conductive oxide glass substrate. Like I'm talking about a point like few months back, and then you have the semiconductor dielectrolyte, all the things there. But currently, parallelly, we are working from last almost 2 years on a project where we are indigenizing the technology for the conductive oxide coating. And we are right now successful in it. So I didn't show anything over here now. So at the end of the day, now what we want is that someone who comes with a soda lime glass from a local market, you can buy for 10 rupees, and you come in here, you can go with a solar panel. It may not be like 20 or 30% efficient panel, but like it can do some job out there, and it is something which is truly indigenous. And those materials, whatever we use, are totally, the full supply chain is with us, and it is it can be actually recycled also at later stage. So in that way, like I foresee that, or like this is my wish as a scientist, few years down the line, I want to see these kind of solar cells which are integrated into various sensor actuators and power nodes, and I can imagine the trees itself in those electronic systems.
Okay, sir, that was the end of the session. Thank you, Suraj sir, for answering all the questions. Now I welcome Mr. Gokul for the vote of thanks.
Hello, am I audible? Hello.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
So, good evening, all. Thank you all for attending the 70th Talk of Indus Society Weekly Webinar Series. First of all, I would like to thank Saindal sir, the chairman and the organizer of Indus Society Weekly Webinar Series, whose dedication has led to us to conduct 70th talk so far without a break on every Wednesday. I would like to convey our sincere thanks to Dr. Suraj Soman, our keynote speaker for today. He also a lot of queries, and he was able to convince everyone. The Inter-Weekly Webinar Society series is hosted jointly by the Institute of Engineers, Kerala State Center, Inter-Society Trivandrum Chapter, Computer Society of India Trivandrum Chapter, Project Management Institute Kerala Chapter, Institute of Electronics and Telecommunication Engineers, Baitam Malvi Foundation Trust, IEEE EMBS Kerala Chapter. We would like to thank all the organizations involved in this initiative. Today, the Zoom control was handled by Amrita Aravind. Our MC was Nikita. Welcome speech was handled by Gopika, and the introduction was handled by Afnan Sihar. So I sincerely thank you all for making the webinar go smoothly. Last but not the least, we would like to thank all the attendees for participating in this webinar. Over to you, Nikita.
Thank you, Gokul. Thank you, sir, for this wonderful session. This is for the next week's weekly webinar. The webinar will be on the topic Navigation System for Aerospace by Dr. Mohanlal. It will be on Wednesday, 18th August from 6 to 7 p.m. Once again, thank you all for participating, and thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Bye.
So can I end the meeting?